Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Journey to Happiness. So, I just wanted to say thank you to all of you from the bottom of my heart for joining me today for this episode. Anytime that you're diving into my episodes with me and we're having these conversations, it means that you're ready for your life to change. You're ready to live a life of happiness and yeah, and it's very touching for me to have you guys join me on these conversations because that's what I feel like it is. It's just a conversation that I'm having with a friend, even though I don't know you and I can't see you. That's just what it feels like to me. So I just wanted to say thank you, and I hope you're having a wonderful Monday or whatever day it is that you're listening to this. And so to preface this, I should say, tonight is a topic that I find near and dear to my heart. I want to talk about friendships. I think it's something that a lot of us struggle with, but few of us talk about out loud, honestly. Um, and what I mean by this is why are friendships so hard in adulthood? What's really happening underneath all of the loneliness that we feel, and how can we really begin to connect with others on a deeper, meaningful level? So that's kind of what I want to start this conversation with. And just let's have a conversation about this because, we're meant for connection. We're meant to be with other humans. And I think the pandemic showed us all of that back in 2020. And I just feel like a lot of us have had struggles like getting back to that connection. And so I think in order to really talk about this, we have to kind of go back to childhood and talk about childhood and the difference between having friendships and connections in childhood and having friendships and connections in adulthood. So this is the thing, as kids, friendships are almost inevitable. We're put into classrooms with other kids our own age. We're going through the same things. We're, losing our teeth. We're riding bikes. We're learning to read. We're going to school functions together, the awkward phases. We are in sporting groups together. We're in these different situations where it's like these group sports, right? So we're all going through these same milestones together. And that continues all throughout high school. And and it's so wild because I remember being a child and I remember when somebody would move away. Now, this might not be the case now because with the birth of the internet, it's a little different. But when I was going to school, I remember like we would have a child, we would have a kid that would move 15 minutes away to a different school district. And you literally felt like you never saw them. They could have been on planet Mars for all we knew. It was like you just lost complete contact because the people that you were in groups with, the people that you were friends with were groups that you had together. It was these group sports. It was, whether it was cheerleading or basketball or football or volleyball or, band or choirs or anything, like you were doing these things together and you were all hitting the same stages. Your friends were the people that lived on the street from you, your neighbors. It was the people in your school. And that's how friendships were formed. So it almost gave us this preconceived notion that it was always going to be like that our friendships were always going to feel like this. But we weren't going to have to try, right? Like we were just going to be friends with each other. Um, but something happens later in life. And after you graduate high school, and now for some people, it might not happen until after you graduate college because, when you go to college, you kind of still have a lot of the same situations, especially if you're in sports and playing sports in college, or, you're there, you're sharing dorms with people, you're still going through a lot of the similar situations. However, really when you hit that 18 years old and you graduate high school, everything changes. Um, because everybody goes in different directions. So some people get married, some people don't, some people have kids, others, go to college, some people don't go to college, some people travel, they have careers, they start businesses, they might struggle with certain losses. All of these different milestones that we start going through, we're going through on our own. There's no longer these clear shared milestones that we had been moving through together through our childhood. So it can be deeply isolating at times. Um, so, then you reach, I mean, I say adulthood at 18 because that's technically when we're adults. But technically, I'm gonna look at this as like maybe like after 21 because if you go to college, like, things can vary here. But, as an adult, things get busy. We're juggling jobs, we have relationships, bills, parenting, chasing dreams, and just trying to stay afloat throughout our lives. In the midst of all that, something happens. Okay, something happens as we become busy with our adult lives, especially if you have children, and I know having children at a young age myself, I was 21 years old, that throughout my children's lives, my friends were other parents. My friends were the people I was going to sporting events. My kids all played sports, so I would go to these sporting events, and my friends became the people who were there with me. Once my kids, decided they didn't want to play that sport anymore, or, of course, especially once they grew up, which they are now, and they weren't really in all of those events anymore. I didn't really have those friends. Like we didn't really talk. And I think a lot of that, again, I think the pandemic showed us a lot of that, because you kind of just scatter, right? And so we stop prioritizing these friendships. Um, it's not that we don't care, but it's the thing, life is so busy that we almost feel like these friendships are optional, life is just so overwhelming. And so we're kind of like, oh, okay, like I'll just reach out to her later. I'll do we'll get together later. It takes effort. It takes an effort to make friends as an adult and to make those meaningful connections. But here's the thing that like people I think don't like to talk about, and I think it's getting more talked about now because of the pandemic. And I think we saw how we do need connection. But I think there's still this misconception like, oh no, I can be independent. I'm this independent, strong woman. Like I don't need anybody else. But this is the thing. We're not meant to do life alone. We are wired for connection. Hear me say this again. We are not meant to do life alone. We are wired for connection. We're wired for shared laughter, for tears, coffees, feeling safe, being raw, being vulnerable. Like that is what we are wired for. I mean, loneliness, it's more than just a emotional experience, right? It's actually a health crisis. I mean, studies have actually shown that chronic loneliness can have the same impact on our bodies as smoking cigarettes can, or as, these other chronic diseases can. So we are not meant to do life alone. We're not meant to be by ourselves. But again, because society tells us that excuse me, we are these independent, strong people, we feel like we don't need other people. So we don't want to admit that we need other people. Um, so I mean, why are friendships so hard as an adult? I mean, I've been talking a little bit about this already, but let's get down to the nitty-gritty here. Why are friendships so hard for adults? Well, this is the thing. It takes intentional effort to have connections and to have meaningful friendships. And that can be hard, right? We're all moving at different speeds. We're dealing with different challenges. We, have, especially, I feel like it's hard in any sense, but I feel like, especially when you get like, I don't know, 40s, I think is a really difficult time when you're navigating all of this. I'm in my mid 40s now because I find it really a struggle now for me more than I did probably before because, my children are now grown. So my children aren't in those sports anymore. We're not going to the school. We're not seeing other parents. And then I have aging parents who also need my help. So because my parents are aging, and then I have these kids who are still living with me, but they're adults now, and it's like you're trying to navigate all of the things, right? And just like overwhelmed with the hustle and the bustle of daily life and working all the time and just trying to make ends meet and taking care of your aging parents while still trying to be a mother to your children because even though they're technically adults, they're still, at that age where like they're still figuring shit out, I mean, they're still babies. I mean, I really don't think people are technically grown until they hit 30, but that's just my opinion. Excuse me, sorry. Get a little worked up over here, you know? But this is the thing also. It can feel vulnerable to reach out, right? To say I need connection or I miss you or I want to be close to you. Because again, we live in this world where we're supposed to be independent and self-sufficient and unbothered and we're supposed to just like live and let live, right? Um, and then there's also the grief of friendship breakups. When you grow in different directions from someone you once felt so close to, that grief often goes unnamed, but it is real and it deserves a space for healing because not all friendships are meant to be in your life forever. And that's really, really sad to say. Like we don't want to think about that. But I mean, let's be real. Like if you're being honest with yourself right now, think about the friendships that you had in high school. Now, granted, on rare occasions, we do have friends that we knew in high school. I still have one myself, that I met when I was 16. But I one that I talked to, right? There's one girl that I still have from my childhood. Now, I made other friends who I knew when I was a child or when I was in school, but we weren't really close back then. So I just want you to sit with that for a minute because I think that's really a really hard pill to swallow. And I think that's another thing that really like is hard for us because as we get older and friendships come and go, because that's just the nature of how things are. Like you're aligned with somebody for a while and then you're not. And I think that the grief of the loss of those friendships, we do deserve to grieve them. And I think it's okay to say, like we just aren't friends anymore. It doesn't mean anything bad. We still love each other. We're just not there anymore, right? So I think these are just situations that are really, really hard for us to deal with as adults because again, we're just trying to navigate the hustle and bustle of everyday life. And, we were almost set up to fail as a child, not like really to fail, but if you think about it and you think about the way things are, you take friendships for granted as a child and you don't really think that you're ever going to have to try because as a child, you just have friends everywhere. Like you just have so many different friends, and then you become adults and everybody just kind of scatters. And I've actually, one other thing I'll say about that is I've seen my boys go through this. I have three boys, and I think it's even harder for men to form meaningful connections because they are taught like that they don't need that. And they had friends that they were with in high school, that I thought they would always be friends with. And now they might still be Facebook friends. They might text occasionally, maybe once in a blue moon with their friends, but they don't really see them. They don't really have any friends right now. They don't have those connections with other people. I mean, they have acquaintances, but it's not like they have people that they're going and hanging out with. And so yeah, so I think we all go through this, and I think if you say otherwise, then I don't know, you're lying or something. No, I'm just kidding. But I think we all go through this, and I think it's something that we should be talking about, and we should be talking about. It's okay to say that I need connection in my life, and it's okay to tell people how you feel and be vulnerable with them. So let's talk about what to do about this. How do we cultivate deeper friendships when it feels so hard? Um, First of all, I think we do have to prioritize this. We have to make an effort. So be the one who initiates it, right? Like be the one who reaches out to your friends. Don't wait for someone else to reach out because if you are waiting for somebody else to reach out, then you might be waiting for a hell of a long time. Not because they don't care about you, but because they're just not thinking about you. And that's not, I'm not meaning that in a mean way. They're just not thinking about you because they have their own shit going on. They have their kids, or they have this and they have that, or they have sickness in their family, or they have boy troubles, or they have, child troubles, or they have mental health issues, whatever it is. Like they're just not thinking about you. You're not on their mind. But, there's a good chance that if you initiate that contact, you send that text, you start the conversation, then maybe that's what they need, right? Maybe they're going through something and they need friends, but they just, again, maybe they don't know how to reach out and ask for help. Maybe they don't want to be the one to reach out and ask for someone to hang out with them. But maybe they really do need that. Maybe they don't even know they need it, but maybe they do. I hope I'm making sense on that. But invite somebody for a walk, coffee, even a FaceTime check-in. Like I have friends that don't even live near me that I made in my adult life here. And like sometimes we'll jump on Zooms or we send voice messages to each other you know I say try to stay in touch with your people when you have friendships that are meaningful to you. Again, you have to make them somewhat a priority. So do at least a weekly check-in. Doesn't have to be a daily thing. You don't have to talk every day, but do a weekly check-in with that person. Hey, how are you doing? Just checking in. Tell them about what you're going through. Ask them what they're going through. I mean, I think this can go a long way, but you have to make an intentional effort here. Like that's the number one thing. You have to make an intentional effort to keep these friendships and to stay connected with these people. Make friendship a party or rhythm, okay? Maybe it's again, this is if you guys live close, but maybe a Sunday walk, every Sunday, which again, weekly might be a little bit hard, especially if you have children who are in a bunch of different activities, but maybe a once a month dinner, maybe just something like that. Maybe just making it like once a month, maybe I don't know, every fourth Saturday or every first Sunday, whatever it is, like just make it a ritual, like make a plan to get together with these people and don't let things get in the way. I mean, obviously things are going to happen, but like try to make it a ritual where you're actually forming these connections. Um, Another thing too is to be vulnerable. Practice vulnerable honesty. Let people in. I think this is one of the hardest things for people, honestly. I think this is probably the hardest thing for people um, because we don't want to show that we're struggling. We want to be strong and we want to be independent and we don't want people to know the real struggles that we're having. Um, but I think it's important that we do, because sometimes you need their support. So that honesty can build intimacy and it can make your connections more meaningful because you you're reaching out to them because maybe you're going through something right now. I recently just had this situation. I don't know if I'll go into all of it right now, but like I'm probably going to make a podcast about what I've been going through, but isn't the time for that. But I've been going through a lot of things right now. And so as I was going through it, I just kind of disappeared because sometimes you do need to disappear for a minute. And then I reached out to a couple of my friends and I told them what I've been going through, and I was just completely honest and vulnerable, and they were so respectful, and they were, just anything I needed. And they would, every few days I would hear from them. They would check in with me. And I just think that that can go a long way, you know. Um, Another thing, the fourth thing here is to find aligned communities. I already kind of touched on this a little bit, but sometimes, a lot of times, we outgrow friendships. The people that have been in our life, we just outgrow them. And again, it doesn't mean anything bad. It doesn't mean you're bad. It doesn't mean they're bad. It just means that you are going into two separate ways. You find a lot of this after your kids start to grow up. And again, a lot of parents tend to congregate because they're at a lot of events together, and then the kids start to grow up and you start to separate. And, but it can just be any type of friendship. This can happen. If the people around you don't feel like your people anymore, if they don't feel like they're aligned with your values, or maybe you just grow in a different path or a different way and you're down a different path now, and maybe they're on a separate path. Maybe you're focused on building a business and they're focused on finding a relationship, or maybe you're focused on small children and they started earlier, so now they're over here with adult children, and you guys are just in two separate places. You know, if you don't feel aligned anymore, that's okay. Seek out new spaces. There's support groups, there's women's circles, classes, creative communities, book clubs. That's the thing. Spiritual spaces. Just go where you feel safe. Go where your people are. And it's okay. Like, I'm not saying you can't even be friends with those other people. Like, maybe you can still reach out occasionally, hey. how you doing? Just haven't heard from you in a while, whatever. But maybe you're just not meant to like be around each other all the time anymore. And that's okay. Find that aligned community. And then again, I've already touched on this, but I'm going to say it again, release the pressure of forever because some friendships are just for a season and it doesn't make them less beautiful. It just means that they were here for a purpose, for a season, and it's time to move on. And so just be open to connection in all forms. I mean, that's the bottom line. Just be open to those connections in all forms. So, friendship and adult is different. It's messier, it's more complicated, um, but it can also be a lot richer because this is the thing. We're choosing it intentionally. We're choosing these friendships because we want to be friends with these people. We want these connections. When you're younger, you're choosing them. You're not really choosing them. Your friendships are there because you're just they it's like convenience, right? Your neighbors, your uh sporting buddies, you sit next to each other in every class, or whatever it is. But as an adult, you have to make it intentional. And so a lot of times, even though it's harder and it's messier, those friendships can be a lot more meaningful because you know that you're both in it for each other, you know? Um, but we get to show up as our truest selves and let others do the same for us because we are all worthy of deep connection and we are all worthy of being chosen and we are all worthy of friendships that feel like home. So I just want to say if you are craving that kind of connection right now and you feel like you don't have it, you're not alone. Because I think we all go through this, and I think we can all learn something from each other. And I think connection is a beautiful thing, and I think we need more of it in this world. So, if you're craving this, just know you're not alone. I see you, and I'm walking this path with you, as so many other beautiful souls out here are. So, I think that's all I have for you today. But until next time, just be gentle with yourself. Maybe reach out to somebody today or tomorrow or this week. And you just never know what one text or one phone call or any of that could mean to somebody and where that could lead. So yeah, that's all I have to say, I guess. But thank you so much for being here with me. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I hope it is meaningful for you, and I hope you find those meaningful connections that you're looking for. And yeah, and I am, as always, I will link my Facebook in here. So don't ever hesitate to reach out to me too, because again, I see you, I'm here with you, we're walking this path together, and I love connecting with other human beings because I think it's beautiful. So I love you so much, and I will see you next week. All right, bye-bye.